Good evening. This special meeting of the Lawrence Alliance for Education for July 17th will now come to order. The time is 6:03. Maria, would you please take attendance? Maria, you're on mute.
Dr. Dolores Calaf, Edgar de Leon, Arlene Garcia,
Present.
Juana Matias, Maria Muller,
Present.
Mayor Brian de Peña,
Present.
Shea Patricia Mariano.
Present. Would we all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are two items on the agenda this evening. The first being to discuss and vote on the amended FY 2024-25 LPS budget. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Mark Ianello, who's available to answer any of the questions you may have based on our discussion last week on the reduction of the school budget. Mr. Ianello, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mark, could you give us an overview of the budget and how it works with the city as far as reducing the bottom line?
Not sure I understand the question, but let me just explain the budgetary process. We do the city strives to meet our net school spending number, our minimum net school spending requirement. This year we always use the governor's as in all years we always use the governor's version of the budget. We don't as we put the budget together sometime in March, so usually we do that with when the governor comes out with his budget recommendations. And then we have what's considered certain qualifying expenses that the city incurs, which counts towards our minimum contribution. That minimum contribution, I think for this year is roughly it's usually around it's roughly 15.2 million as a required contribution. And we can have some qualifying costs of roughly for administrative costs, for example, of $1.1 million. We have some other operating maintenance costs that DPW and so on incurs for like 1.3 million. And that's pretty much what we do. So when we submitted we had our original budget submitted, the school department's allocation was roughly $265 million. So we were looking for ways to reduce the budget to save on the taxes for the residents. And so we contacted the acting superintendent to see if we could, one of the things that we talked about is our administrative costs or our allocable administrative costs are limited to a 2013 MOU between the city and the school. And so our administrative costs are roughly about $1 million. The DESE has a per pupil allowance that they allow that we would like to see if we could adopt, but we'd have to negotiate with the school department and get agreement. And that would be for FY25, that allowance is about $145 per student, which would give us roughly $2 million in administrative costs that we could allocate towards our minimum contribution. So it's an increase of approximately $1 million. So it's something we have to negotiate with the school department, but that's the impetus behind this cut. The superintendent felt that we could bear the brunt of $1.5 million that we can allocate, allowing the city to allocate some more costs. But he indicated that would have to be negotiated with the future superintendent and the and the rest of the school department. So that's basically the what we did was in front of the city council. We asked the school superintendent to help us with for the overall cut of the budget, which was 3.4 million, to come up with roughly $1.5 million, and that's what we did. So the city council reduced the city budget by 3.4 million, of which included a $1.5 million cut for the school department. So that pretty much explains in a nutshell what happened.
All right, and I think the other night there was some confusion as to what our role as a board would be in this process.
Yeah, your role is to allocate the appropriation that the city allocates to the school department. You decide where it goes. So your allocation is for FY25 is roughly 278 million bucks. That includes 263 million for general education, building leases. We have an estimate of 1.2 million for the cost of the leases that the city has to pick up, that the Chapter 70 money cannot be used for maintaining leases over a certain number of years without DESI's approval. Transportation, of course, the city has to pick up the cost of transporting children to and from school once a day. So that's estimated at roughly 12.4 million. And adult education is outside Chapter 70. So that allocation goes to the school department as well. But that's limited to adult education for 1.3 million. So that's the roughly 278 million in total appropriation for the school department.
All right, I'll open it up to any other board members that have questions at this time. Maria?
I love to, I'm just trying to focus on like the $1.5 million period. I mean, it's not, this was a lot of information, but I'm just trying to focus. Basically, the cliff notes, it's that the city is taking back some money from the district. So I know it sounds like the previous superintendent agreed with it, or, you know, I'd love to hear how the current superintendent feels about that and what his thoughts are on that. Personally, and I will share that, you know, obviously it's a practice that I would love to not get used to. You know, we voted on a budget, and, you know, I just, you know, it would have been great if it stayed like that. And obviously I know the city probably, I'd love to see other alternatives in terms of cuts other than the district. I'm just trying to obviously represent the district here and allocate as much funding as possible to the students. I know that there was talk about like, okay, the city is going to make it up through, you know, some services to the district as well. But I just, it's a practice that I would rather not.
Yeah. I understand. I think if I could put it this way, in essence, I mean, the average per pupil administrative cost is roughly twice as much as we're allowed to charge per our existing MOU. And so in essence, the city's been kind of getting shortchanged with this limited formula that we have, whereas DESI uses the average or per pupil cost throughout the district using the FY22/23 actual numbers from all of the communities in the Commonwealth. That's how they come up with the average cost, average administrative cost per pupil. So the city's been kind of getting shortchanged since 2013. We're okay with it. We were able to do it, but this year we're a little stuck with raising taxes or having to raise taxes to meet the budget requests that came in. And so we made an attempt to go back and reduce many of the budget, many of the cuts. And one of the things we asked the superintendent was for a little help, acknowledging that there is a new administrative cost per pupil for FY25. It's substantially more. It's approximately $1 million more than the allocation would be $1 million more than what we currently have, or we're currently taking or getting credit for. And that's per the DESI regulations and per the DESI calculations. So it's not anything that we're doing that's untoward. It's just something that's available to the city to use with the school department for our negotiations and coming up with a new MOU. So, having said that, I mean, there is also the impact to the school department. Remember, in FY25, the city has, or the school department received roughly $20 million increase in their appropriation from state aid and so forth. So it's not like the school department was level funded, had to cut their budget. The school department and Juan was pretty comfortable being able to absorb an additional $1.5 million to help the city out. And I might add that over the last several years, the school department has not spent its entire appropriation, because in the last several years, there's been a substantial increase in each year. And with staffing the way it is, it's hard to have a full, particularly in an organization as large as Lawrence, you can't keep a full complement of employees. There's always some employee that resigns or leaves or is out for a certain period. And so it is very difficult to fully spend your budget within the fiscal year. Well,
I mean, I would love I know that this board intends on working on that to make sure that we use all the resources that the district has. This is a brand new year, brand new opportunity to fix that. I just have a quick question, Mark, sorry for interrupting, but in terms of the city meeting the required allocation for the district, I forget the actual number, but as it was presented last week, without that $1.5 million, it was not going to be met. So,
well, we would be, if the school department does not allow, if we can't negotiate a new MOU, we would be $1.5 million short of the required net school spending. We're still within the 5% allowance that we're allowed to have. So we're well within the 5%. We're allowed to short you 5%. We haven't done that since I've been here. We've been doing meeting net school spending every single year. We're trying to appropriate the exact amount. So but I've also been trying to negotiate a new MOU or would like to negotiate a new MOU even in 2013. We just couldn't get the receiver at the time to agree to change the methodology. But the fiscal overseer at the time and I made a case that the city was, again, we were $27.4 million in the red, trying to make that up. And the city was not able to charge the fair amount that of expenses we provide for the school. So we're stuck with that 2013 MOU, which we were fine with. We would like to negotiate a new MOU to see if we can get at least credit for the administrative costs that DESI allows. It seems to be a reasonable thing. It's that we don't have to fight over the allocation or how it's calculated. It's very simple. It's a per pupil for this year. I think it's you guys have per the Chapter 70 distribution for FY25. It's 14,815 students times $149 is the calculation. It's very simple. There's no arguments over. It's a very easy MOU to draft. So that's basically the incident. So we're okay. We have to we still have to negotiate this $1.5 million with the school department to see if we can get credit for it. And if we're not, we're going to be short, and that'll either we'll make that up before the end of the year, or we will be short and it'll have to be carried over into the following year. And as long as we stay within the 5%, we're okay. But if we're not, we're going to be encouraged by DESI to make the amount up.
Any further questions? Superintendent, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do, and thank you, Maria, for the opportunity to ask a few questions. I think just a couple of clarifying points, Mark, that you made. You mentioned a pupil cost that goes into the calculation that municipalities are allowed to charge. The current rate, I believe, is $135 for this past year. Is that correct? Mark, are you there?
I'm sorry, I'm muted. For
Oh.
FY25, I have it on my screen. I pulled it up just to make sure I had the right numbers. It's on the DESI website. It's for FY25, it's 145.19 per
That's
pupil.
for this, that's for the incoming school year,
That's for FY25. That's correct.
correct? So the city's side or obligation for net school spending is, I heard you say $15.2 million. The administrative cost that you're asking for, does that reduce or come out of the $15.2 million of required net school spending, or is that separate?
No, that comes out of the required contribution is 15.2, and when we get credit for some qualifying expenses. So we don't have to give you the cash of 15.2, but we get credit for. So it's in your calculation. So it's 15.2.
You would reduce the 15.2 allocation by the 1.3 or $1.8 million that you're saying that the city needs to help balance the projections for 2025, correct?
Well, we're with the current calculation has roughly 1.1 million in administrative costs, and with the per pupil using the per pupil number, it would be 2.1 million, be roughly $1 million.
So I did have a chance to read the memorandum, and obviously, Madam Chair and members of the board, it is a legal document, and it was signed in 2013 by the receiver, who represents the Department of Education. So the transaction that Mark is talking about is legal, and it's acceptable. And quite frankly, although the school board are asking questions, and I know why they're asking, I'm sorry, the LAE board is asking questions, I can understand why. But I think we did receive, Madam Chair, from the Department of Education, from when you or Mark wrote this past week regarding their request. The Department of Education indicated to us that the city had in its right to go ahead and tap into those funds. And Mark Ionello is also saying there's a certain amount that they can cap at, and that's at 5%. And this is way below the 5%. I think it would have been prudent, and I understand now why it wasn't, and I don't want to seem disrespectful, Mark. This is the first time in I don't know how long that you are exercising this strategy, even though we've had this memorandum now since 2013, correct?
Do you mean the cost per pupil average, you mean? That's been around, that's been around for many years. I'm not sure how long that's been.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying this is the first time that the city has indicated that they were going to reduce the school's portion by the was it 1.3 or 1.8, 1.5? What is it?
1.5 million. It is 1.5, but in other words, we've in the budget since 2013 when we came up with the MOU, we've been following that MOU. We haven't deviated from it, and we've always generally met the net school spending number. It's a little bit increase or decrease based on the final legislative budget. So it goes up, might be a couple $100,000 more, could be a few $100,000 less in a few years, but we generally use the governor's budget, and the final doesn't vary much.
Great.
So, this is something that could have been done in any year. This
Correct,
is our
but it
first year.
hasn't been done.
And this again, I want to just reiterate, this 1.5 million, we do have to come up with a new MOU. It's allowable in the regulations, but the school department still has to agree to it. So you would agree to use it for FY25 and going forward in the future years is what we'd like to do. But
Well, I
right
think that
now, we're still
Mark-
bound by the 2013.
Mark, if I may interrupt you a minute. After we decide on this portion of the budget, we are going to discuss that MOU. And Attorney Stefan is here to explain it to us.
Mark, you're muted.
Okay, yeah, so the 2013 MOU was derived with the receiver and the fiscal overseer, and the mayor, I think, signed it on the city's side. And that's our current MOU for qualifying costs. So
And the board's attorney is here, John. You can step in at any time.
Well, thank you. Let me just step in right here, just because, Madam Chair, I want to clarify that the MOU that we're discussing as the second agenda item is a different one from the one that contains the provisions that we're currently discussing.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just wanted to make sure to
No,
set everyone's expectations.
The reference to that 2013 just rang a bell with what we were discussing.
And in the reference to the 2013, Madam Chair, through you to the board's attorney, on point number 13, it does indicate that the MOU will be in effect through the FY 1890 school year and will remain in effect until a successor agreement is approved. My interpretation of that is that this agreement then is still in effect. Is that correct, sir?
I actually have not reviewed the MOU that you're currently discussing, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not in a position to answer that question.
yeah, I'm pretty confident that's correct. That's why I just said we are still bound by the 2013 MOU. It was supposed to have an end of useful life and renegotiate, but it stays in effect until that's done.
And as a result, then, Madam Chair, based on the recommendation from our liaison from the Department of Education, who indicated that the city has the right to set the budget based on the legal terms and the memorandum of understanding. I don't know, other than us jumping up and down and letting them know that we're not happy with it or what have you, that there's much that we can do about that. And Maria, I will say, in the spirit of working with the city, and some of us have been here for a long time, and we've come a long way, where I do believe the city has done its yeoman's work of working with our facilities and taking care of our streets, our buildings, our plumbing. I witnessed today and saw the amount of work just in the old North Common Plaza, where before, our custodians couldn't even touch the maintenance component of breaking a wall down, which means that we would have had to pay out in overtime and union rates for the plumbing to be there. But because the custodians are able to do the prep work of busting down the walls and what have you, so when the plumbers from the city or contractors come out, they just come in and do their surgical daycare, and they're not spending an extra 25 or 30 hours at union rates breaking walls. We're saving money. And that's because Chris Merlino has been able to work with the facilities director from the city side. So although it might seem that, yes, we can use every dollar for every one of our kids, we're in the position where legally and authoritatively, the city does have the right to reduce that budget. Thank God that we're not hurting for money, that we're using our money wisely. But I think that considering the fact that we're putting in 10 weeks, $22 million in our buildings, and it's a joint effort with the city and the school side, I think it's a moot point for us to continue to try to figure out a way of holding on to that. The only thing that I would say in terms of criticism, Mark, even though this was an MOU, and in the MOU, it does state that the city should delineate through a spreadsheet the cost factors of what it incurred. And I have never seen that type of a document. So I don't know where the 1.3 or $4 million got calculated that the city needed. That was it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, at this point, I'm going to call the question. May I have a motion to approve the amended FY 2024-2025 LPS budget? Motion?
Madam
Chair, just
Hearing
to,
none?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, you are yourself permitted to make a motion if you wish.
I make a motion that we approve the amended FY 2024-25 LPS budget. Motion made by the chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Maria, please call the roll.
Arlene Garcia,
Yes.
Maria Muller,
Yes.
Mayor Brian De Peña,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board.
Mark, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm at your disposal. Thank you.
Okay, you too. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the extension of the memorandum of understanding with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Attorney Stefan to provide an overview of the memorandum and answer any questions you may have. Good evening,
Madam
Attorney
Chair.
Stefan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to everyone. This is, I have an understanding that the board received copies of the MOU that we're speaking about in this agenda item earlier today. So I do hope you've had a chance to review it. It's not terribly lengthy, and we will be here to go through it, and certainly I'm available to answer questions that you have. But to set the stage at the outset, this is an MOU that was most recently signed in 2021. It is between the LAE, the receiver for the Lawrence Public School System, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And it lays out, in essence, the details of the relationship between the LAE and DESE, including the duties and expectations and responsibilities that the LAE needs to discharge. This MOU has been in place for several years. It has been renewed previously. This most recent version was renewed in 2021 and had a 3-year term. That term expired, and that is the reason why we have put it on the agenda for today. It is the recommendation from myself and from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that the board consider renewing this without making any changes to the terms. The terms, we're certainly open to discussion, but the recommendation is to simply extend the MOU to continue business as usual between the Alliance for Education and DESE for another 3-year period or until the receivership ends, whichever comes first.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I was referring to the memorandum of understanding that was dated June 2023. I have not seen any version of the 2021 unless it's on the agenda that Maria Campuzano can post so that we can review it. I've never seen that document. Attorney
Superintendent, we're
Stefan?
happy to provide you with a copy of that. However, at this point, this is a meeting of the board.
Okay,
The issue is for their discussion.
thank you.
Certainly.
Attorney Stefan, I'm looking at the document dated June 2013. And I believe that's what we sent the board members this week.
That is not the MOU that we were looking to discuss.
They're
Right,
looking,
see,
the
that
one
was-
we,
That was the confusion I had with Mr. Ianello.
Understandable, yes. I can I can put the MOU on the board. I can also distribute it if it's to Maria to share with the board, or at least the members who are on this meeting now. If that is the preference, people, you can let me know which would be helpful. Otherwise, I'm happy to walk through what this document says.
Can you share it with us at this time?
I can, yes, ma'am. I can email that should I email that around to
Can you share
Maria?
your screen? Could you put it up on your screen?
Yes, I should
And
be
we
able to
could-
do that. I think I'll need permission from Maria to be able to do that.
You got it.
Thank you very much. Let me pull this up on my screen. I was working from a paper copy.
I understand the confusion now.
Okay, let me see if I can manage to do this correctly here. Okay, if I've done this right, I'm sharing a screen now that includes the MOU. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent. So this, I'll scroll to the end of this document so people can see. It is, as it states at the outset, an MOU between the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Lawrence Alliance for Education. From here, the signature blocks indicate that it was signed and entered into between then the interim chair of the LAE and the Commissioner Riley, June of 2021. So I'll scroll through in order so people can see what this document generally provides. After introductory paragraphs that lay out the role and the statutory authority for the appointment of the LAE as receiver for the Lawrence Public Schools. The following paragraphs are outlined. There is an appointment paragraph noting that the commissioner had appointed the LAE as the receiver as of July 1, 2021. It sets a membership of the Lawrence Alliance as including 7 members appointed by the commissioner, and the board shall serve at the commissioner's discretion. The term, which I referenced earlier, is a 3-year term. It runs from June 30th of the date it was signed through June 30, 2024. And then there are these substantive duties and responsibilities that are agreed that the Lawrence Alliance for Education shall have, including reporting directly to the commissioner, responsible for negotiating contracts with superintendent, if necessary, conducting a search. This is all very familiar to everyone, having just been through this, as well as being responsible for the implementation of the turnaround plan, and a number of additional duties that are set forth here in the bullet points. This includes renewing the turnaround plan, delegating additional duties and responsibilities to the superintendent, having the power and the responsibility to evaluate the superintendent, who the superintendent would be responsible for managing the district on a day-to-day basis. The Lawrence Alliance for Education has the power and responsibility to dismiss the superintendent under certain circumstances, of course, and that's subject to approval by the commissioner. The LAE has the power to select a successor superintendent, again, subject to the commissioner's approval. The LAE has the power and the responsibility to review and approve the budget for the district. as well as hiring and supervising legal counsel, evaluating the progress of schools in the district, and all other powers and responsibilities of the school committee except those that have been delegated to the superintendent. The remainder of this speaks to certain other topics, making clear that the members of the LAE board serve as volunteers without compensation, that the LAE itself is evaluated by the commissioner on an annual basis. There is an obligation of the LAE to obtain directors and officers and errors and omissions insurance coverage, and an agreement that the LAE will comply with all federal, state, municipal laws, rules, regulations, and codes, including a number that are specified. It sets out where notices related to this should be sent. Legal validity, of course, just to explains that the governing law for this shall be that of Massachusetts. Any amendments of this are to be done in writing and should be routinely discussed between DESE and the LAE. There's a termination provision which provides that the commissioner may dismiss the LAE as receiver by terminating the MOU and may also terminate the MOU in certain ways pursuant to the statute that gave the commissioner the power to appoint the receiver. It also may be terminated by at any time by mutual consent of the parties. And the rest is sort of essential boilerplate indicating that this is the full agreement between the parties as to these topics, that everybody had the opportunity to consult with counsel before they signed it, that it had be signed in counterparts if necessary, and the authorities here provided to DESE or the commissioner are not limited by this agreement. So it is a gap filling document. This essentially sets a number of, fills in a number of gaps that would be present given that the statutory authority is laid out, but it does not cover every aspect of the LAE's functions. For example, the statute that says the commissioner shall appoint the LAE does not say that the LAE is going to have the authority to, or the power and the responsibility to evaluate a superintendent or select successor superintendents. This is all laid out here in this MOU to indicate that these are the responsibilities that the LAE has taken by agreement with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So, the reason why we're here today to discuss this is because by its terms, the MOU has expired, and it expired as of June 30th, 2024. Our recommendation is that we extend this. We should have an MOU in place so that there is an understanding as to these responsibilities, these duties, and everything continues without a gap. But given that this is expired, we should renew the agreement. We would do that by a simple document signed by the chair, assuming that the commission, assuming that the LAE board votes to authorize this. That document would simply state that the parties have agreed to extend the term of this memorandum of understanding for a period of time. Again, the recommendation is that we extend it for another 3-year term or until the LAE is no longer serves as the receiver, whichever should happen first. So that was a lot of information in a short period of time. I'm certainly available to answer questions and happy to scroll through this document if people would have particular paragraphs or topics that they want to take a look at.
Thank you, John, for that. And you will email a copy of that to everyone?
Yes, ma'am. I can do that while I'm speaking with you now. I think what I'll do is I'll send this to Maria if that's okay, and
Sure,
Maria can
send it,
distribute it
Maria
to
forward it.
the board.
Yes.
If I read correctly, we should have seen this 6 months ago.
That's if there was a desire to renegotiate the terms of this agreement. So there is not been an expressed desire to discuss this, nor has there been an interest expressed by the commissioner to terminate this. And I want to be very clear about that this is not this document has not been brought, the DESI nor the commissioner have expressed any interest in terminating this MOU at this time. Rather, it simply expired by its own terms as an oversight.
Any other questions by the board? My feeling is if we've been operating under this MOU since 21, and it expires in 24, I believe we should go ahead and authorize it and agree to the memorandum for the extension for 3 years or the conclusion of the receivership for the city, whichever comes first. Any other comments by the board? All right, hearing none. Could I have a motion to extend the memorandum of understanding with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Lawrence Alliance for Education?
So move.
Thank you, Maria. Could I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Arlene. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Maria, please call the roll.
Arlene Garcia,
yes.
María Müller,
Yes.
Mayor Brian de Peña,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Before we adjourn, John, I'm concerned about the document that we do have, this June 2013, which is the agreement of services between the city and the school department. And I believe that's what Mark was referring to. What do we have to do to extend this, to approve it? What happens with this document?
2013 document.
Yes, June 2013.
I'm happy to provide an answer to that question, but I do think that I should read the document before I give you an opinion about it. So if you're willing to share it with me, I'm more than happy to review it and return to this group to provide more detail on what we should be considering its impacts are.
Okay.
I wonder if it was already, the one that we were sent is expired in 2019.
Right, well, or until a new successor approves it.
Right. So we'll send it your way.
Okay, that's number 13 in the document.
Yes.
All right, I'd like to take that in the form of a motion. Motion to allow Attorney Stefan to review the memorandum of understanding between the city and the LAE and the school department. That
So moved.
expired, thank you, that expired in 2019. May I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Maria, please call the roll.
Arlene
Maria?
Garcia,
Yes.
María Müller,
Yes.
Mayor Brian de Peña,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes, thank you for that. And now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second, thank you. Maria, please call the roll.
Arlene Garcia,
Yes.
María Müller,
Yes.
Mayor Brian de Peña,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes, thank you all very, very much. I appreciate your time.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night. We are adjourned.